April 16th here in Southern Ontario, and I want to talk about what's happening in the UK. And I hope if you're in Canada that you'll hear me out on this. I'll try to untangle this mess as briefly as I can. Brexit, when the UK held a public referendum to leave the EU, the European Union. 2020, that was. Anyways, Keir Starmer was elected as Prime Minister, leader of the Labour Party, just last July 5th, 2024. Now bear this in mind. Starmer is an active status WEF member and a Young Global Leaders Program graduate from 2004. So if you want to fact check me on that, it was prior to the Young Global Leaders Program. It was then called the New Champions or the Young Champions, if you care to fact check that. In fact, he's on record as saying he puts his loyalty to the WEF ahead of that of the country that he's Prime Minister of. Anyways, Starmer ran on a platform of, amongst other things, smash the gangs. Newcomer gangs. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, that hasn't happened. Stats have only risen sharply. And the crime and all related. He ran strongly on reining in the illegals flowing into the country, mostly across the English Channel. That hasn't happened. In fact, stats have been on the rise steadily ever since he took power. And in fact, illegal crossings of the English Channel from France is in the first quarter of this year, setting records that continue to rise weekly. Over 8,000 illegal immigrants just across the channel to date this year alone. Oh, it gets worse. Starmer's been caught out in secret meetings with Brussels. That's the headquarters of the EU Commission, headed by Ursula von der Leyen, the Wicked Witch of the WEF. She sits on the WEF Board of Trustees, and as I've said in many a previous video, the WEF, through the EU Commission, and Ursula von der Leyen in Brussels, holds a lot of say over the powers of the sovereign nations of the 27 member countries. Back to Starmer. Publicly, Starmer has informed his peasantry that his government is set to align the UK with EU net zero laws. Plans to join the EU Defence Pact and allow the EU courts oversight on, well, all the stuff they have oversight of the EU member countries, including agri-foods, farming. Starmer's already imposed these inheritance laws on farms in Britain that have the farmers revolting, petitioning, lobbying. Basically, the farmers in the UK say this will completely obliterate farming in the UK. Think back to the World Economic Forum's Sustainable Development Goals, where they clearly state that conventional farming is not sustainable. Anyways, moving on. More on Starmer. All new UK coal mining licenses have been halted. And we're talking coke for steel production here. So the coke will be imported from Japan rather than harvested at home. And these measures are clearly intended to halt UK steel production. And wait for it, this UK steel production fududdery and a host of other malarkey has direct ties to China. Now, meanwhile, 68% of Brits polled agree that the UK is broken. Are we hearing a lot of similarities here between Keir Starmer, Mark Carney, the whole WEF agenda, net zero? We sure are. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. Nigel Farage is not a WEF member, and I want to point out that Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservative Party, is a WEF member. Anyways, Farage and the Reform Party have surged to the lead in the polls, and yet Keir Starmer's government is halting or delaying a lot of their elections, specifically where the right-wing Nigel Farage Reform Party leads. We're seeing something similar to that happening, well, in Germany and in France and now in Poland. Yeah. The common theme: the left is the WEF, and the WEF is the left, and they have one common goal. So, if you're thinking about voting for CARNEY, look at the UK. A lot of people say, I will summate this here now, finally. And I sort of forgot my train of thought. Yeah, I did. I forgot my train of thought. But anyways, so I'll leave the video here. Oh yeah, that was my train of thought. A lot of people say you look at the UK and you see what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. If CARNEY gets in, it's not going to be 5 or 10 years. It'll be accelerating, I should say, this year. And we'll be here, like, by this time next year, we're going to look like the UK, and we don't want to look like that. But if this clown CARNEY gets in, Klaus CARNEY, there's not much hope.